and I'm one of the co-founders and CEO of Sattva Consulting. Sattva, as you know, we are a knowledge firm in the impact space, working across multiple stakeholders. And we are really, really pleased to welcome you for this roundtable, which is focused on how we can enable multi-stakeholder collaboration across the millet value chain. As we know, this is the International Year of Millets, and I think it's an important milestone and opportunity for India to kind of step up, our millet story, not just in India, but also at a global level. Just a bit of a logistics for everyone who's here. We, really glad that you could make it to this webinar. The video and audio for all the audiences would be muted. And if you have questions, our team will put up the link where you can type in the questions, and as much as possible in a curated fashion, we will address those questions. Today's discussion is structured into two sections. The first, we will have a keynote address from our keynote speaker, Mr. Selvendran, a senior bureaucrat from the government of Madhya Pradesh, and we will shortly introduce him as we go along. And also, post that, we have a panel discussion with a wonderful set of panelists who are coming from very different backgrounds. And we will also open up for, Q&A after the, panel discussion as well. Millets, as you know, has emerged as a very important and a promising, crop in India, and there's been a lot of focus by the government on promoting millets. If any of you have been attending government meetings, and G20 meetings, you'll see how much of millet dishes are now being served, in these places. So it's really fascinating to see the focus on millets across the country. At Sattva, in our agriculture practice area at the Sattva Knowledge Institute, we've been developing a lot of knowledge and insights on millets and what the potential of this ecosystem can be, and how we can help contribute to better collaboration within this ecosystem and scaling up of this, ecosystem. So far, we've published a perspective report on how mainstreaming of millets in India can happen and what are the opportunities there. We've also organized roundtables by various stakeholders, to bring together the thoughts on, how a stronger ecosystem that can be created in the millet space. And we've also very recently, done a podcast, to which I encourage all of you to have a listen to, in our Decoding Impact series with Mr. S. Sivkumar, who's the head of Agri and IT business of ITC, that we were able to kind of get his guidance on the millet story, as well. So today we really hope to learn from all the, wonderful speakers that we have, and hope this can be a platform for all of us to learn, and as we go forward, collaborate. I would love to now welcome Mr. Selvendran, who is a senior bureaucrat, like I said, in the government of Madhya Pradesh. He's a commissioner of agriculture. Sir, thank you so much for making time and for being here with us. We would be we are very delighted to have you, and very, very happy to learn from you, on how Madhya Pradesh, as a state, has been working in the space of millets, and also, your guidance for the rest of us in this ecosystem. Over to you, Mr. Selvendran.
Thank you, Krishna. I think I too am here to learn, to share my experience as well as learn from the different stakeholders. You put up a beautiful panel. So good afternoon, my fellow panelists and all the participants. I think our country has been able to become sufficient in food grains, primarily due to the Green Revolution. And it's been quite some time, but now we have quite a new set of challenges that we are facing in relation to agriculture. I think just to list out a few, we know that the weather, vagaries of weather is resulting in quite a lot of challenges to the farmers. Soil fertility has been eroded due to over exploitation or exhaustive cultivation of crops. There is excessive use of agricultural inputs. And another emerging challenge or promise is that the consumers are increasingly becoming more health conscious. That is where in the increase in the affluence of the society with increased levels of income, standard of living, there is an expectation that we get better quality food to consume. In this context, I believe the International Year of Millets is apt at this particular juncture. It is one trying to bring a focus on what we have lost or what we need to probably reconsider our strategy in relation to how we chart the growth of agriculture or crop production, particularly for food consumption. I think that in the context of this particular webinar, I had to do some reading so that I can appear a little well-informed. So I too got to know that in the 1950s, the food basket of an Indian household was at least 20% was millets, which has come down to less than 4% these days.
Wow.
And the area under millets was more than 5 million hectares, and now it is, I think, close to 1 million hectares. So we traveled a lot, and I believe the need of the hour at that time was to make ourselves sufficient in food security. Food security was an important concern, and the Green Revolution offered a means in which we could feed quite a lot of people in our country, as well as increase the income level of farmers and make agriculture profitable. And I believe we have been able to do that. I can share the experience of Madhya Pradesh. Madhya Pradesh in the 1950s was probably the 20th or the 25th state in terms of the power used in agriculture. Power used in agriculture is an indication of the mechanization or mechanization of agriculture. Today, we are among the top 4-5 states in relation to adoption of mechanization for agriculture. And the power consumption of Madhya Pradesh is far greater than the Indian average. In fact, the number of tractors being sold in the state, if you look at the figures, MP ranks number 2 in purchase of tractors every year. It comes next to UP, which has a population of 22 crores, whereas we have a population of around 8 crores. So the per capita number of tractors being sold is much higher. And this has all been mostly possible due to agriculture, which was fueled by availability of cheap credit and linkage to institutional credit. Quite a large number of farmers have been able to get access to the formal institutions of finance. Secondly, it is availability of power. MP has made great strides in making power available to the agriculture sector. Third, it is also in relation to availability of water. I think we were around, in 2008, the area under assured irrigation was around 8 lakh hectares, and today it is 44 lakh hectares. And it is the projects which are under progress. In the next 2 years, we'll be reaching around 64 lakh hectares of assured irrigation. And then a double-edged sword, which was procurement. Procurement of paddy and wheat has given a sort of assurance to farmers for the price for whatever produce they cultivate. And between the years, procurement started in a big way in Madhya Pradesh in 2014. And today, we stand to be among one of the first, second, or third states where in relation to paddy and wheat procurement in the country. In fact, in 2020, the paddy and wheat procured in MP put together was more than what they procured from Punjab or Haryana for that matter. Now, we have been able to come all this much, but the problems associated with it is, as I had earlier underlined, is soil is rapidly losing its fertility. The organic carbon content is also shrinking to a large extent. You can see quite a lot of residues creeping up into our food chain. And all these challenges have to be met out by looking at something slightly different. Maybe crops which require lesser inputs crops which are can be taken up by farmers which are resilient to agriculture, and we need to be a little more judicious in use of agriculture inputs. When it comes to millets, they tick all the boxes in relation to what we had discussed. But the problems in adoption of millets, if I leave bajra, if I leave pearl millet, and to some extent, if I leave sorghum also out of this, we then see that there is very little productivity when you compare it with a crop like, say, paddy or wheat. There is, and hence there is low income. The price is also not that much. There is an absence of value chains in relation to the minor millets, particularly when it comes to MP is more known for its kodo, kutki, etc. And there is an absence of value chains. And of course, farmers have better revenues, because when I have to cultivate paddy or wheat, and then government is there to procure it at a price which is a little above the market price, and at not a very far distance from my farm, then the farmer generally chooses it. I think the policy level initiatives or interventions that are required, quite a lot of them have already been taken up in the past few years. And one of them would be to give more remunerative prices for farmers who can cultivate millets. Now, how do you give it is a question we would also look into that. But there are states like Odisha and Chhattisgarh who have introduced the system of MSP, where the government procures millets and then use it for consumption in their midday meal scheme, in Anganwadis, etc., and even in the PDS system. So their farmer, the area under cultivation in Odisha and Chhattisgarh has gone up quite, the area has increased quite a bit. Many governments have also been working on creation of value chains, and there has been some effort in relation to R&D in relation to release of high-yielding varieties, better package of practices, post-harvest, etc. But I think we need to further consolidate and have a more holistic approach towards creation of value chains. And I think getting the farmer remunerative price is really not a very big problem in this current year. What we've seen is because of the increased awareness that consumers have in relation to the benefits of millets, there has been a change in the way people are in their food habits. And I've seen many senior officers when we visit their residences, some of our friends, there is at least one meal that they have in, say, 2 or 3 days, which has millets in it. So there is an increased consumer awareness. But what is probably lacking is, and the price of millets is also not low, it's quite high. People from down south, Karnataka, they purchase, I've seen them purchase millets, kodo kutki in Madhya Pradesh at say 50 to 60 rupees per kg of raw unprocessed kodo kutki, which is, whereas the tribal farmer gets around 20 to 18 to 20 rupees per kg. So there is a need to formalize and create these value chains so that the farmer gets a better return, which would motivate him to cultivate more. And there is an assurance of a market also. Currently, that particular section of or component is much more weaker in the efforts that we are taking towards promotion of millet cultivation. Government of MP has been doing a few small things. I would just like to briefly comment on them, and then would also open it up to others. We have tried to, there are quite a lot of FPOs working on millet production, processing, and marketing. So we have just got, we are trying to federate around 8 to 10 good FPOs, create a federation at the state level. And we believe that this federation would be able to have a certain economies of scale so that they can invest in the marketing and post-harvest and creation of value-added products in millets. There is quite a lot of infrastructure which has already been created through government-funded programs. I see so far there's been very little private investment in this sector. But quite a lot of investment from the government, from public funds has happened, and they are functioning. So I know at least of 3 processing plants which can process maybe 1,000 tons to 2,000 tons per year. Just to put it in the context, it would the processing capacity would be at least for 15 to 20% of the millets produced in MP. This is in relation to Kodaputki. For the pearl millet and other crops, the capacity is much more. Apart from the federation part, we've been also trying to get our universities. This year, there's been a very concerted effort. We have asked our universities to look into high-yielding varieties. They have developed a few varieties, which are local land races, and it's a selection based on the local land races. But the productivity has to improve quite a lot more. Apart from that, another challenge that we have is there is, even in a state like MP, there is increasingly a shortage for labor. So the equipment of farm machinery that is required for millets, the varieties need to be amenable for mechanical harvesting. The processing should be a lot more easier. The diversity of millets in our country is such that when we bring machinery from, say, Andhra Pradesh or Karnataka, the minor millets over there is of a slightly larger size in comparison to what we have in MP. So there is a lot of customization that we also need to do. And quite a lot of, we have initiated some work in the post-harvest aspects of millet storage. Because once you dehusk it, I believe quite a lot of people in this audience would know that the shelf life of dehusked minor millets is not great. There is a certain time period within which it needs to be consumed. And millet is only one crop. We need to bring in cropping systems wherein the farmer can get some revenue over a period of year. It needs to get aligned to his other cropping system requirements. We are working on these areas. I believe these present both challenges and opportunities. We need to go quite a long way in getting to a place where we want to be. Our objective is to increase the revenue of farmers cultivating millets to an extent which is comparable to paddy and wheat. It is easily said, but then we are not looking at it as a single crop. We need to look at it for the entire year, the cropping system, and also trying to transfer a greater value of what the consumer pays to the farmer. And in this context, quite a lot of participants, I believe, are working in this sector who are attending this webinar. We are open to collaborations and partnerships and facilitation. So in case anyone requires some facilitation from the side of government, it may be in relation to getting some regulatory clearance, simplification of some procedure, or in terms of, say, getting access to certain resources, we would certainly be willing to work with you all. And under the RKVY scheme of Government of India, there is a component of PPIID, wherein a project proponent can engage with us, telling that they are going to invest in a particular, purchase and use of agricultural produce. So it could be an aggregator, it could be a food processing industry unit. And you tell us what are the efforts that government needs to take so that they get a assured supply of the produce in terms of quantity as well as quality. So we would do that, and Government of MP also has a few schemes wherein we can provide certain benefits over and above this through the industry department, etc. So in case anyone who's working in the value chain, it could be an industry, it could be an aggregator, it could be someone who's providing a solution for, say, something as good as assaying, etc. And you want to associate with this, I'll just drop my mail ID in the chat. I'll drop a message. Please note, and then I'll be happy if you all can mail to me. I think with this, I should stop. I've taken a little more than what time must have been.
No, it was absolutely wonderful, Mr. Selvendran, and I think it's firstly very inspiring to see how MP has kind of adopted so many interesting practices, and especially in the agriculture space, a lot of us working in the agri space have seen the real work on the ground. So, kudos to you and your team. It was also very interesting to, hear about some of the focus on not just, the fundamental focus on farmer. In this whole story, we cannot forget the farmer income, that anything we try to do in this space without keeping that in mind is only going to, put us 2 steps, kind of back. So keeping that at a central level, and at the same time looking at strengthening the entire value chain, I think is definitely something that we will take away from here. And thank you so much for also opening up, for collaboration. I think that's very important. That's one of the things that we've been talking about, that it'll take a lot of us to kind of come together and work to make this thing happen. I think there are a lot of, challenges plus opportunities that exist. 2 questions, sir. I just wanted to kind of, get your guidance on, post what you just said. One, what has been your experience, or your even guidance to the private sector? India is it's become the startup capital of the world. We are, I think, today a startup for every possible aspect, and technology is playing a big role. Universities are now granting leave of absence to become a entrepreneur. So there's a lot of startup energy, entrepreneur energy in the country. Is there a way we can direct that energy, and of course the larger private sector ecosystem towards, innovating in the millet space? Because that will also, like you talked about, mechanization, technology, and so many other things, that's possible. So that was one question. And the second, I'll finish as well. Do you feel that there are a couple of large things we can do, which are big levers that can push the millet story forward, or is it a string of small things that we need to do to be able to kind of move this forward? If there are any large things, big things that we could do as an ecosystem to further, to push the millet ecosystem to the next level, what would they be? Right? It would be great to get your guidance on these 2 questions, sir.
The first question in relation to startups, I think I had earlier mentioned, but agriculture in our country, when we look at it, what it is today in comparison to what it was in the 60s. In 60s, it was largely funded, and a strategy was given by by government, and the investments were largely public in nature. But when we come look at it today, most of it is done by the private sector. Just to give an example, I think more than 80% of the area under a crop like, say, bajra is under hybrid seed production. And out of this, I believe majority of the seed comes from the private sector. When it comes to equipments, when it comes to pesticides or plant protection chemicals, etc., the private sector is large and mature enough to provide the services that the farmers are seeking. What I believe is from the side of government, we are now only trying to facilitate or try to influence. It's more in a position of like we are there to give a small nudge to the farmer to adopt certain cropping practices. And I believe the farmer looks for, he's a businessman. So whatever he does, he looks at what is the income that he's going to get from that particular activity. And depending upon the risk profile, he decides what is the crop that he wants to take. One of the reasons why, and generally farmers, most of them are averse to risk, which is why they prefer to cultivate crops like paddy and wheat, because they get a assured price. Once a price is declared upfront, it is much more easier for the farmer to take a decision to cultivate crops. So when it comes to the question that you raise is what should startups look at, or how do they get involved? I believe there are people working in different sectors. It's easy to get into the input sector or to provide technology as a service, but the larger part is in relation to marketing. If you can fix the marketing part, I believe that then sets the entire value chain, it puts it in place. Today, the part of trading is a very informal sector. There isn't any discipline over there. So if people can look at creating or adopting existing standards for crop produce, trying to have a pan-India set of standards. Maybe you may not have one set of standards, but then if standards are convertible, like when we purchase a shoe, you know how to convert a US size into a UK size in case standards are convertible. And once that is done, I believe technology would play a major role. Like if there is a set of standards which is accepted across the country, and there is an agency. This is another place where startups can also focus a lot. If there is another agency which can certify the standard, assure that this is the standard, I believe then the linkage, the sector becomes a lot more formal. A person sitting down south can easily procure something which is cultivated over here based on trust and faith. Currently, we do not have the trust or faith. It is more based on a person rather than the system. I believe startups have quite a lot to work over there. And connecting with farmers, I believe there is a initiative of Government of India, AgriStack. I believe quite a lot of people should be aware of it. It is trying to create a registry of farmers, crops, and land. So that is actually going to spur growth in the sector by use of technology. And I would suggest all startups to look at what the AgriStack stands for and push with government, engage with government, and try to use it. If this is done, I believe quite a lot of problems, quite a lot of solutions that you want to. Like AgriStack would give you an indication of what is a crop grown in which area. Over a period of years, you'll be able to get information. You'll be able to get information on which farmer prefers to cultivate what. It is going to open up or provide a base of data which is available to all the startup community in a non-discriminatory way. Just, I think I can keep speaking. The other one is what are the big steps that we need to take. One step is, I believe, putting AgriStack in place and its adoption with by the private sector. So anyone who's interested should contact Government of India, and you should start engaging with them to create these registries in a way it is useful to you all. We probably they are doing it. We are also associated with them. We are doing it in a way which we believe is would be useful to the private sector. I think other than that, I'll just take this last minute as creation of value chains and formalizing them. That is the requirement. And we'll take a few years for the minor of the minor millets, Kodo Kutki, Barnyard millet, etc. Because there's absolutely no research in terms of what varieties can be used to improve yield. How do you make it profitable? That increasing, apart from increasing productivity levels, the entire production system in terms of harvesting, weeding, etc. There's quite a lot of work done in other crops that we would take some time. This is what I understand. Other participants should be. They may also.
This is very, very useful, Selvendran. So thank you so much for your inputs. Really appreciate that. We really hope that you stay back, to listen to the other panelists and and hopefully participate in the Q&A towards the end. But a big thanks to you for making time and joining us today for this particular discussion. And please stay on, sir, if you can, for the rest of the discussion as well. We now move on to the second part, I'd like to now welcome all my other panelists. Dr. J. Stanley, who's a senior scientist at Indian Institute of Millet Research. Mrs. Pallavi Upadhyaya, who's the co-founder and MD of Millets for Health. Mr. Tapas, who's part of the government of Odisha, and also Mr. Ravinder Grover, who's the regional coordinator Asia for HarvestPlus. A very, very warm welcome to all the speakers, and I request the team to also kind of bring them up on stage and get their videos going as well. Dr. Stanley, I hope you can hear me. Okay, he's in security. Okay, we'll have Dr. Stanley join us in a bit. So maybe Pallavi, we can start off with you. we had some interesting thoughts from Selvendran sir on the role of startups in India. You're I would say a brave entrepreneur who stepped into the millets world. Almost a sunrise sector in some some form. And it'll be great to hear from you on, as a startup founder in the millet space, how has your journey been like? What have been some of the challenges, opportunities that you've kind of hit? And it'll be good to hear some personal learnings and advice to the fellow entrepreneurs in the millet space as well. Over to you, Pallavi.
Thank you so much, Krishna, and I'm delighted to be here with such an illustrious panel of speakers. Thank you, Selvendran sir. That was a very insightful conversation. Dialogue that you just shared with us, and very happy to know of all the lovely initiatives the government of MP is taking to promote millets. I am the founder of an enterprise that has been working on millets since 2016. So we started really early on, and we started this work when there was virtually no conversation happening around millets, at least now not in the northern part of the country. We are based in Delhi NCR. We are based in Noida, and we started our work by catering to the Delhi NCR crowd. At that point of time, I think we were the lone entrepreneurs, and for many years after that, from 2016 to I think almost a couple of years back, we were amongst a very, very few people who were talking about millets. And so my journey and our team's journey, it's very different, because now there is a lot of conversation, there's a lot of support, there is a lot more that's happening. And the challenges now are slightly, the market now has evolved a little bit from where we were. So I'm just going to quickly sort of talk about what we've done earlier. And I think that a lot of that work still continues to remain relevant, because what we have done is just a small drop in a very big ocean. So, there's a lot more that still needs to be done. And if we can replicate some of that same work, I think we've been in our small network, we've been successful in creating some sustainable demand for millets, which I think is most critical. If we fix the demand, as we were speaking, like if we fix the marketing, if we fix the demand side of it, other things start falling into place. So the marketing of millets, really, we need to work on that. So when we started, there was, like I said, virtually no conversation around millets. We would, take our products and we started by selling to people we know, as usually happens. People would buy out of pity, ki, "Acha, theek hai, acha kaam kar rahe ho, khareed lete hain tumhara saman." We would talk to them. But, and we are a bootstrap startup. So again, and millets was something very, very new. But we found that people bought it, but there were no return or repeat takers for millets. And in the north, people would know bajra, jwar, but the minor millets, sama, people knew, because you have that during fasting. But there's a very specific association with sama, and the other millets people barely knew about. So we had to do consumer education and awareness as a regular part of what we were doing. And that sort of has evolved as a model of work for us over the years. So we still continue to do that, but now the scale at which we do that is very, very different. So earlier years, we would go to farmers markets and take our products and cook up a storm every Sunday morning, because we had to make people taste the food. It's the product cannot be alien. It's something, if it's in the packet, people don't relate to it. We're very, very used to eating certain kind of food. So if you can't taste it, if you can't relate to it, then it doesn't really make sense. So we had to make people relate to the food by tasting it. And then, of course, if something is tasty and then you talk about how good it is for the farmer or for the country or for your health, etc., then all of that is an added bonus. So that's what we did. And we would, take it to farmers markets and talk. And now we are doing that at a very different scale. We have an e-learning program on millets. I do these free sessions every month. Usually we have almost more than 500 people at least attending live every free session. So there's a lot of interest now. It's not something that I would have imagined when we started the work. So because even a free session, if people are taking time out to attend, I think it's pretty commendable. And then we have these detailed paid workshops. So people pay to learn what millets are, how to cook with millets. So we have an e-learning course in English, we have an e-learning course in Hindi, and we have a lot of engagement with our consumers. So apart from the products that we do, that's a separate line altogether. This cooking, this teaching engagement, I think is what has given us very sustainable customers. And the other thing we've done is increase our basket of products. So people have different eating preferences. They want to eat, different things. Some prefer rice, some prefer atta form, some prefer it more in a snack form, breads, etc. So we have a diverse range of products that we have developed. So that's sort of our journey. I've already shared with you, and I'll share with the audience also. We're also very, very engaged with farmers. We work with several farmers in Andhra Pradesh and Anantapur, so we're backwardly integrated there. And we are closely associated with a not-for-profit who does this, and that's where a lot of our procurement also happens from. We've also started work in Bundelkhand, Uttar Pradesh, in 4 districts in that area, working with farmers on growing 4 millets right now. So Jawar Bajra and Sama, with Barnyard millet and Kodo millet. So 4 millets we'll be focusing on over there. So that's our backward integration. And forward, we do all of these products, etc. Some of the challenges that I think and I'll talk about challenges in today's context.
Please.
Supply still remains a challenge because as the demand for millets is growing, the supply, so the more farmers need to start growing it, and the supply needs to start matching up. But I think that the market dynamics will start correcting themselves. If we, this year, I think many farmers, recently there was this news piece that I think there's this Kharif sowing for millets has been phenomenal. I don't really remember the exact numbers right now, but a lot of farmers have sown millets this Kharif season. So that's very encouraging. But the other part is that if we are growing the minor millets, processing is not evenly, available across all parts of the country. So especially the northern part of the country, MP, I'm very happy to know that there are several processing centers being set up over there. But at least in the northern part of the country, there's not a lot of processing happening of the minor millets, which is very critical. So de-hulling, quality production of products. So we as entrepreneurs, so now we're developing this cluster in UP, we'll have to sort of think of where the processing and everything else will happen. So that work also has to get started because there isn't a lot of infrastructure available for that. This is a growing market, right? It's not yet fully mature. The market is still developing. So the gaps that are there, we can look at them as challenges or we can look at them as opportunities. They can be both. So they are challenges for the entrepreneurs like us who have stepped into it at the beginning of our journey, but there are also opportunities. So I think we need to look at it from that perspective. So one thing that I mentioned is the uniform availability of raw material. The other thing is standard of products. So there is no uniformity in terms of a standard that's expected. And I think Sir also spoke about it. For instance, I know there are certain schemes like PLI, etc., in which they mandate 35% millet should be there to qualify for the scheme. But there is no uniformity in terms of how much percentage of millet needs to be there in a product for it to qualify as a millet product. So there is a lot of stuff available in the market, which is like 5% ragi and it says, ragi cookies. So that, rest of it will be maida. So that is quite a misnomer for many of the products. So I think standard of products, we need to start developing and several, there are lots of government people here and representatives from different institutes. So this is something that I think as startups, we are, everybody keeps asking. Just today, there was a discussion in one of the groups, there is many people, we don't know what our GST rates are. Somebody will charge something else on the same product. Another startup will charge something else on the same products. So there is not, an awareness of the standard GST rates on millet products, or the standard required, the quality required for the base millets, what is the quality expectation. So that is something that maybe it's something that needs to be done. We need to develop that. Of course, consumer still needs to be made aware. There is ample work that has been done on that. And I think from when we started to now, there's a huge difference because the consumer is hearing about it from everywhere. So definitely, there's a very, very positive impact that the entire momentum of the International Year of Millets has had on consumer demand, on awareness. But that being said, there's still a lot of gap in terms of getting the right information to the consumer. People are still not entirely aware of, so, you know, a lot of people will be eating millets, but then they'll be eating polished millets or millets in a certain specific form. So, you know, that awareness, there's a certain gap in terms of types of millets and how we can eat them, cooking, how we can eat them, how we can consume them. Again, with time, I think this can be corrected, but this is something that we can also focus on a little more. As a brand, we have done this because earlier there was really no mechanism for us other than ourselves to get this information to the consumer. Apart from that, we also need to make sure, so like for startups, if we are looking at it from that perspective, we need to make sure that we are not health washing our products or whatever, you know, if you, for want of a better word, there is, you know, there's a risk of falling into the trap of making products which are easier to sell and which taste better, but may not be the same in terms of nutrition. And if we are talking about millets as something which is nutritious, is, you know, as a product, if we are trying to say that, you know, we are promoting millets because they are nutritious, we need to maintain that sanctity of the product when we are, you know, developing our products or bringing out our products. So, you know, if we have like excessive amounts of maida in the product, like you're putting 20% ragi and the rest of it is maida in your cookie, then it's not really a millet product. Or even, I know now there are breads in the market which will now say ragi bread, they are being widely distributed, but you really need to look at the ingredient list to see how much millet is there and how much of what other products are there. As a brand, we struggle, but then, you know, then you end up competing with those products as well, because not everybody looks at the ingredient list that carefully. So that's, I think, for us as a brand trying to work with the values of keeping the sanctity of millets intact, I think we're also competing with that particular segment of products.
Wonderful. No, fascinating, Pallavi. More power to you, you know, to being on this path, entrepreneurial journey in the millet space. And you know, I think you know, it may not be health washing. You're almost talking about millet washing, you know, in this space, and that's like an aspirational thing. You know, people, if millet washing is happening, that means, you know, the product is coming, it's arrived. You know, everybody wants to be called a millet product. Then I think there's an aspiration, or at least the health quotient. We had you know, in one of our roundtables, we had a chef from Taj also speak about, you know, saying how, you know, as a product, it has to kind of appear to all the senses. It's not just, you know, the taste, the smell, the texture, you know. He said if millet has to win in the market, you know, it has to kind of tick many of these, you know, kind of boxes. And what I'm very fascinated to hear also is the fact that you're having a supply problem. You know, I mean, for a long time, I think we were hearing that there was a demand problem, and, you know, it looks like in some parts of the ecosystem, there could be a supply problem as well. And how it goes back to Selvendran sir's point of value chain development and strengthening the, you know, the market. So thank you for that. I'll come back to you for more questions. I'm just switching to Ravinder. You know, I know you've been smiling as people have been speaking on this whole, you know, I know you work across the chain, you know, up, down the chain. We'll first go up the chain and then come back down the chain. In terms of Ravinder, the whole business of millets, right? You know, commercial pathways of millets. You know, how does one think about this in India? You know, is there what are the, you know, in some sense, barriers today? Do you also believe that there's a bit of a millet washing happening across, you know, and products trying to say, hey, I'm also a millet product? And do you think there's enough commercial interest in the market? And what are you hearing both in the startup world and the business world?
Yeah, thank you, Krishna, for having me here, first of all. And I'm just quickly checking if I'm audible and visible.
Very much, very much.
And I was smiling, Krishna, because I could so much relate to what Selvendran ji said and what Pallavi said about supply chain and the kind of health washing that's happening. In fact, that's my concern. I meet many startups and I ask them, when did you start? And when they say this year, I just walk away from those startups. Because this year everyone wants to be in the millet space, but I'm concerned about December 31st, how many dead bodies will there be in the closet? So, and so if you didn't start this journey before this year, that means you really are not in this space for that you believe in millets, but for other reasons. And I would like to start with the farmers, adding to what Sridhar ji said, and I think a very valid point. When we talk about commercial space, the agriculture value chain has two components: the back end and the front end. Let's start with the back end first, the farmers part. Now, millets are very good. All of us know they are healthy, they are nutritious, low GI, high fiber, everything is there. They're good for climate, good for soil, good for everyone. But does the farmer care? And a straightforward answer to this is no. He really doesn't care. And I was listening to, and maybe you would have also heard, I think 2018 May, Arnab Goswami was interviewing Shah Rukh Khan, and then in one of the things Shah Rukh said कि गुर्बत में creativity नहीं होती. So you can't be philosophical till you become rich, right? So you can't be philosophical before you become rich. So farmer ko climate and other things, we can keep on telling, we can keep on harping about nutrition, but the poor man can't care about it because in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, he is placed at a much lower level. So I think, and that has been an important learning for us. A couple of years back, we looked at the way we were promoting this concept of promoting millets to the farmers, and we tore away all the literature that we had, which was talking about nutrition and other paraphernalia around it. And we started talking about one thing that farmer understands better than all of us, that's economics. And we started talking about how much money you are going to make by doing millets. And I think farmer understands the concept of risk and reward very well. So although the millets might not be yielding at par with some of the commercial crops, there might not be an MSP available in all the states, but then there's a fair case of good economics here because low input usage, two, a lot of climate resilience, which comes natural to the millet crops, which means probability of actually making money is much more in case of millets. And then, farmer, when they see a positive trend happening on the consumption side, more and more startups and consumers demanding, I guess that's an encouraging sign. And that's why, like Pallavi mentioned, we are seeing around 27-30% increase in production area. And that's only and only driven by economics. And I think we will be only humoring ourselves if we believe it's because of any marketing that we are doing. It's the economics that's driving this whole scale. Now, coming to the commercialization, in my experience, I think 3 clear-cut pathways which are available for anyone to commercialize millets. First and foremost is the on-farm consumption. And I guess that's the most ignored one right now, because whenever you go to any startup, everyone is trying to market this product to the urban consumers and ignoring a key consumption segment, which is lying in the rural India itself. That's the farmer, his family and friends. They have been using millets and they understand the value of it. 50% of the produce for any smallholder farmers is anyhow consumed at their household. So, it's important for us to not ignore this customer segment. And so there will be a merit in designing products which are and propositions which are kind of suiting to the needs of bottom of the pyramid, because there's a huge market lying there. And I think I am not the right person to comment how to crack that market. There are many people from startup ecosystem who can come up with better ideas to how to target that. The second big, the commercialization pathway that I see is the institutional pathway. And Krishna, as you know, India has a huge institutional setup around one of the largest midday meal program is run in India. 120 million children are fed every day. And I think it's relatively easier to mainstream millets there. And this could be a huge chunk itself. And it creates a very beautiful homegrown school feeding model where, we actually don't need to grow millets in one part of the country and then ship it to the schools. You grow millets around these schools in the rural areas, and then those are consumed, which means also a lot of logistic savings that can happen. And the last one is on the commercial area. And I can't agree with Pallavi. I know the health washing is a real problem. And I'm scared that, I think we are hard selling nutrition. And my fear is, I used to like khichdi, and I'm sure many of us used to like khichdi. But then the way it was positioned, it became like when you are bimar only, then you have to have khichdi, because, there was too much of a health kind of a positioning that was built around khichdi, that it took all the taste and the, the kind of other pleasure that you used to get from eating khichdi. So that's my concern. I think this, too much of creativity and marketing happening around the nutrition aspects of millets. At my home, I just realized my son has been eating millets for quite some time, and he didn't even know, and we didn't know that it's a millet-based thing. So one of the products from a company called Slurp Farm, they make a cake mix. And he simply eats because it makes that cake a little rough, and you get a mouthful feeling when you are eating that cake. And so it's as simple as that, right? If you can create wonderful products, you don't really need to spend money on marketing of those products. And I think our startups know this fact better than this. But this is my take on the commercial pathways, Krishna.
No, fascinating, Ravinder. Thank you so much. I really like the rural consumption part of it. I think it's usually a afterthought in many cases, and probably can come much earlier in the game. And the institutional bit is a great start. I mean, once I start tasting it in other places, in hotels and even other institutions, and I was just making note that maybe at Sattva we need to start getting millet food, as well, very quickly. It's very easy and simple to do that for us. So I think that's a big kind of game changer, as well. And it's a great entry point. From there you can build, at least gives you a base, from that perspective. And I think we are again coming to the point of, nutrition, was a taste. I mean, when you oversell nutrition, it's almost like masaledar khichdi, would be wonderful to eat, but you have to dumb it down so that, you make it healthy, type of stuff, right? It's almost not good to eat a nice khichdi from that perspective. So great points. I have a couple more things to come back to you, Ravinder, but, I want to now bring Tapas into the conversation. Tapas, thank you for being patient, through this bit. You're very close to the ground, and that's what I wanted to get your perspectives on. How are these communities thinking about? Tell us what the farmers are thinking, from the perspective of millets. You're also at the and building on Ravinder's point on, is there rural consumption opportunities on millets? And you're also leading some very interesting projects in the government of Odisha, who's also very progressive on the whole story of agriculture and millets. So getting your perspectives both from the field and from the government perspective will be very valuable, Tapas.
Okay, thank you, Krishna, for giving me the opportunity today here. As I will be moreover talking about Odisha Millet Mission, we will be focusing on that. Really, it is a wonderful mission. If I say, it's like in 2017-18 we started, and where was totally nobody was talking about it. So the initiative that was taken very in the low project, if I say low investment, but gradually, if I say in this last after 5 years completion of this project, I think again we have extended to another 5 years, and it will be very good and heartening to know that the budget that was like 2,808 crores was invested, is planned to invest in these 5 years. So it is a huge investment from the government side, where Odisha Millet Mission, where we have more than 20% tribal farmers. Especially this program is meant for tribal farmers, where they were not getting benefited from that. So in these early days, when we were seeing the field, that mostly the farmers, they were broadcasting their seeds as we do with other little millets or all that. So and they were basically doing it for their own consumptions, and moreover, whatever the surplus they had to sell in a very low price. But the good thing that happened in Odisha, if I say, the market support that the farmers are getting, it's like from the last 4 to 5 years, we are procuring in these MSP rates. and the farmers are very happy that they are getting the money in within 3 days. So the system that is built, and I will say systems works, and Odisha Millet Mission is doing in that way. And the consumption side, if I say the awareness side, or if I say today in this empowering these women SSGs, if I say, if you come to Odisha, if you will see like each and every place where you can go, you can find the women are coming into the front taking millets. And if I say that when we talk about millet and women, both are the two sides of a coin, and we relate into that because they are the person who have taken and who have conserved these millets, and we are working in that. It is not that the decision that is taken in the higher level or that, but it is coming from the ground level where the farmers want. If the farmers are thinking of a variety at which we are working on the land races from the last couple of 4 to 5 years, where we brought some varieties where it is giving more yield than the release varieties. So they have the power, and we are also, I think, the first state in the country, if I say in the world, if I say, where we are bringing these land races into the seed chain. So it's a good, if I say, for the farmers where they can work upon these seeds, and they are also coming up with seed production and all that. They are also being benefited out of the seed production part. And other thing that we are working now is that we are also working on the GI for some millets like finger millet. We have identified already. We have taken a lot of stakeholders into that, and many years working in that. And the real part, what has been working for us is that in the meantime, we do not have much collaboration with others or convergence with other departments, if I say, like we had with Mission Shakti. So they had been helping us in every aspect. And the best part is that when you are thinking or planning to reach to the ground to cover each and every small and marginal farmers who are devoid of all these subsidies or incentives. So we took part also partnership with the civil societies where they helped us in reaching these small and marginal farmers, and they keep on doing. And we are, the best part is that we also developed the processing that we, if I say in this village level where they could process it, they can make the value-added products, and also the awareness. If I think where lastly within World Cup hockey, where you might be seeing a lot of people who are saying, but we collaborated like with sports department, how millets and sports can be could line up each other, and like Jagde India, we also like Chakle millets. So that was the initiative was taken from government side. So and the other thing is that we also declared 9th November as the Millet Day, and it is celebrated all over the state. And the International Year of Millets, I think a lot of states are coming forward, they are celebrating it, but we are each and every day we are doing some programs in a state. If I say you will find each and every day some program in the village level, maybe in the block level, maybe in the district level. So this awareness is making a shift change, I will say, in the perception of the consumption that we have. So in this way, I will say, moreover, we are focusing on it, and we think that in this, we will be taking more over, like Niti Aayog is supporting us, Indian Institute of Millet Research, and the institution collaboration with that we have with moreover like WFPO, where World Food Programs have been also working with us. So that support we are also getting from them. So hope this collaboration and the stakeholders partnership will take this millets to a long way. Thank you for patience hearing. I think any questions that we asked, I will be happy to answer.
Tapas, thank you so much. I think that was wonderful. I think riding on, I think the Hockey World Cup was very, very creative, and that kind of feeds to Ravinder's point of institutional, consumption. When you have a large number of institutions coming in one place and you're able to kind of promote it, I think it's really wonderful. And the engagement with the civil society organizations, I think, is also very, very critical, because the the whole ecosystem of small and marginal farmers, I think, is something that we cannot ignore in this whole conversation. And very, very glad to also hear how at a holistic level Odisha as a state is kind of working towards it. Definitely a few more questions that I'll come back with. I just want to go back to you, Ravinder, and building on some things that Tapas said. How do you see the role of, and Selvendran sir also talked about, farmer producer organizations, right? Like when you come with small farmers, the collectives that are possible, what role can FPOs play? Is that, because would that be a solution to engaging consumption, value addition? Should we invest in FPO ecosystem to kind of get some leverage in the millet space?
Yeah. Krishna, as we mentioned, the most of the opportunities, and for this to be sustainable, if we are also looking at rural consumption, hyper-local consumption, then our models have to be designed in such a way that millets are grown in the vicinity of consumption areas, and then they are also, the value addition happens near to the point of consumption. That's the whole idea which makes it sustainable, and that's where I think FPOs can play an important role. Look, millets do not require very heavy value addition, at least for rural consumption. We are talking about primary processing of these millets, creating simple recipes, and then say laddus, cookies, and other things, which is already being done, can be easily done with minimal investment at the FPO levels itself. So I think, there's a clear-cut opportunity, not only from a farming perspective, but also from an agripreneurship perspective that exists in case of millets. And that's where FPOs can play a very, very important role. In fact, they could be feeding into, and to Pallavi's point, that we are looking at value chains, sanctity in this case. In fact, the startups that we work with, in our case, just for the viewers, we work on value-added millets which are having higher iron than the regular millet varieties. So these are iron-rich, and it's important for us to ensure that there is a traceability of these millets so that we can make these claims on the products. So our startups face this challenge that they do not get millets, where they can be 100% sure that this is iron pearl millet and not the regular pearl millet, and there is no visible difference between an ordinary millet and a value-added or a biofortified millet. So that's where FPOs are playing a key role, and in fact, we have been working with the startups that we have been nurturing, and I'm happy to share that we have ensured that the 15% of additional price is paid to the FPOs who are helping with growing and value addition of these millets, aggregation of these millets. And again, the economics is very simple. We have realized that consumers are willing to pay around 27 to 30% premium over naturally nutritious millets over the regular ones. So out of that 30%, even if they are passing 50% of it to the farmers, and in the return they are getting a value chain that they are 100% sure about, it's still good economics for everyone. So that's one area that's working on. And in addition, like I mentioned, also the startups are looking at these FPOs as the consumption channels. They are like the consumer cooperatives for farmers, so to say, and then they can buy in bulk the end product as well. So that's another area that where FPCs are playing a role. And I think for millets, success of millets, the nature of commodity it is, I guess FPC ecosystem is going to be the key pivot here if we want to scale this up sustainably.
Wonderful. No, and I think the whole point of creating incentives for these FPOs, the 15%, I think is a wonderful one, which connects back to, everybody at the end of the day looks at it from an economic, incentive perspective. Tapas, just want to get your quick reaction on if Odisha as a state is doing something on the FPO side as well, and from it comes to millet. And are you also looking at the startup ecosystem? People like Pallavi working with you and your government and your programs. It will be great to get your feedback on both the startups and FPOs, what you're doing, and then I'll come back, Pallavi, to you on an important question.
Yeah. If I say from the FPO side, when we started our Odisha Millet missions, where the civil society worked there, so we also selected some FPOs in every place that we are working in each blocks, so that they can also be a part of this ecosystem, where they can take this into when this, if at all, if the project closes after 5 years, so they can also run in a sustainable way. because this FPO needs supports from the government side in terms of that we are supporting like their expenses for the CEOs, accountant and all that. So they also need understanding of like what are the support they are getting to the government side. And we are also taking these FPOs into our where we do the procurements from the farmers. So FPO is also a part of the agency where they procure, and also they also earn the commissions, the amount of or the they procure from the farmers. So in that way, they also get some benefit, and the farmers also comes together, and they also know that this is the product that the government is procuring. So they have a large numbers of farmers coming and joining these FPOs. So in the long run, when it comes like we started with around 200, 300 members, now it is going around 5,000 members. So
Wonderful.
in the long run, I think in this way, we can also reach like 8 to 10,000 in FPO. So in this way, they can also do business. And we also been connected with APIDA, where we have been training these FPOs for the export and all that. And we also initiated in the last 2 to 3 months back, we also exported to Dubai and all that. So in this way, they can also learn and also feel that where this market opportunity is there, and they can collaborate and also do that.
Wonderful, wonderful. That is really, really interesting, Tapas. And I think the power of aggregation really potentially can solve the economics problem that we are all, kind of talking about, and building on that. Pallavi, want your reaction on two things. One, the whole story of, if the farmers, because you said there's a potentially a supply problem, and if we go with the structure of the FPO and strengthen that part of the chain, would that benefit someone like you, per se? The second, question is, where is the demand high? Where is the consumer going? We know what the farmer wants. What does the consumer want? Where's the consumer going with respect to the whole place? And is there, because lots of people are listening here, are in the millet space. Is there certain key consumer trends we should keep in mind, so that we also kind of keep that, as we work through the millet story, and not, because I think we are also, as an ecosystem, might be carpet bombing the whole thing, either we kaam kare, udhar bhi kaam kar rahe, right? So is there a need for a little more consolidated effort on certain parts of the millet ecosystem, so that we can get some, again, some scale, in these places?
Okay. In response to the first question, definitely an FPO model will be very, very useful. And if we can get good quality products, and that too in quantities that the startups require, sustained supply, maintained quality, all of that, I think, is, if it is available, and I think investment and development of FPOs will certainly be instrumental in something like that. And going back to the point of rural consumption or consumption around the areas where millets are being grown, if processing is done at the local level, then only we can encourage this. Because if the farmer is just growing and for processing it's going somewhere else, then there's nothing really available for local consumption. Yeah. So processing needs to be closer to the farmer level, and that's very, very important to encourage the market in that area. And FPO development as a model can also feed into the local consumption, as well as supplying to startups or supplying in larger quantities. That being said, quality again is another very, very important aspect. As products, and this is, I know, something that you didn't directly ask, but we need to keep this in mind. As a product, millets are something that are already a little difficult to sell, a little difficult to market for us. We have to convince the customer. A millet product does not sell in isolation. The millet product has to be sold with a story. Only then it sells. In isolation, it doesn't move. Jaise agar aap chawal bech rahe hain, waise it will not sell like that. It has to come with a story. So we have to tell the story. We have to make an added effort around it. On top of that, if we cannot maintain the quality, the consumer will buy it once, eat it once, and the perception will be that this is not so good, because they're anyway getting used to the taste. So some quality is something that we need to maintain across all levels. And I think as startups, if we are not doing that, and even if you're not incorporating that at the FPO level, it's doing a great disservice to the entire industry. So quality is something that we really need to be looking at. when we're talking about the product. Then going to the second part of your question. So if you could just quickly remind me again.
What are the consumer trends, key consumer trends? Where should we,
key consumer trends,
focus?
It's a very interesting question. We keep introducing new products just to get a sense of what the consumer wants and what moves. So like our most recent products and are like cookies and crackers that we have introduced. And the response has been very, very good. The crackers are really, they're going very well. And wherever we are introducing it, there's like a repeat demand. So it's not very heartening for me personally, but as a market thing, so it's not moving that much as a staple as it is moving in the snacks.
So it's very interesting. So Haldiram's had to adopt millet.
So, because that's for some reason for mass market.
It's a fascinating insight actually.
So because see, people are adoption into as staple is more difficult. People are very used to eating their roti and their chawal. So to adapt to that needs more effort, but adaptation of millets into the snack space is easier. So, as a brand, we were focusing more on the staple bit. And Ravinder, I'll send you our khichdi. It is fantastic. You must try it.
Me also, please.
I will. I'll send all of you a packet of our khichdi. It's fantastic. It's like a millet-based khichdi, no rice, no wheat, all millets. In fact, in our house, we eat it like for dinner almost every day. So, we used to focus more on the staple bit of it, even including like the whole millets, the atta, sprouted flour, our suji, poha, those kind of forms. But we realized that to catch the market and to get the consumers' continued interest into our products, we really need to do more snacking and these kind of products, and they are very, very easy to move. So even if people don't buy anything else with millets, they will buy millet snacks. So I think that's one trend. And I think noodles are really catching on.
Interesting.
People are very, very interested in millet noodles. So that's also a product which is moving fast. And of course, for us, there is a certain segment of customers that is eating millet for health reasons. And they are buying the base millets.
Wonderful.
So they are buying millets as staples. There it is moving. The minor millets are also moving very well. But that's with very niche customers, not the mass market in general.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So I'm already weaving in some of the questions that's coming in, Pallavi. That's very fascinating. And, Selvendran sir, I hope you're here. I want to ask one question that's come, which probably will need your input. And then, I hope Dr. Stanley has joined us as well. There he is. So I have one question to ask, probably Selvendran sir, you can start off and get a couple of reactions. And then Stanley will come back to Dr. Stanley on the overall IIMR, perspective as well. There's one question on how do we nationally move the whole consumer demand, right? And even in our previous roundtable there was a discussion on like this whole national I forget the full name of the egg association, which came up and said anda khao, and they started the whole movement around that, and Amul did the whole doodh campaign, and suddenly there was a lot more alignment or more a national focus on this, which could kind of address some of the consumer behavior / millet washing, health washing kind of a discussion. Would it make sense to look at a more central body to promote millets, at a very, very central national level, and which can actually address some of these consumer related issues? Of course, the rest of it can be done through policy, but is there a need for a national, focus on millets? Selvendran sir, would love to get your feedback on that. There was an idea that was floated in one of our earlier roundtables, and it seems to be one of the questions that's come up here as well. Is there merit in thinking about it like that? And, Pallavi, your thoughts on that as well.
I think the International Year of Millets has already done quite a lot for it. I happened to attend one G20 conference. They killed us with millets.
I've been in a couple as well. That's where my thing came from.
So the awareness level has increased a lot, and I believe that strategy works. I'm not an expert on that, but I've seen that strategy work. Apart from that, changing food consumption behavior is a very complex thing. I think it's better led to the private sector. I was it was nice listening to what Pallavi was telling about all these things. And I'm just trying to tell you the economics of it. What I understand, like once again, we don't work too much on bajra, etc. We work more on kodo and kurti because that is where we need to put in some effort. The income per kg for a farmer, if it is sold as raw produce, is around 20 to 25 rupees per kg. The moment you dehusk it, the price that the farmer realizes is at least 35 rupees. And once you go into a value add, it goes to 60 to 70 rupees. So it was really interesting to see consumer behavior. We too have seen cookies going on, they sell well. Coming back to your question, I think to limit myself to that, yes, it would make sense to still promote it. And that must also be backed by sufficient the ability to provide public the required quantities. Because if you don't, if you're not able to do that,
create the demand and
forget it.
Got it. Thank you, sir. Pallavi, quick response on that. I know Dr. Stanley has a flight to catch, so we also want to bring him just a quick response on my question, and then I'll move to Dr. Stanley to accommodate him.
So you're asking about like a promotional
National campaign. Doodh piyo, millet khao, ragi biscuit khao, whatever, right? Like, do we?
No, I think that's a lot of that is already being done, but maybe I think he's talking about it at a bigger scale. Before doing that, we must be assured of supplies, I feel.
Okay, so you're still afraid of the supply side of the problem.
Our minor millets, if you're talking about barnyard or brown top millet, in certain seasons it just it's not there in the market, it goes. So now there are not enough farmers growing it. We need to stabilize, I think, the supply for another year. That there is already, the government is making now a lot of effort. There are many people who are talking about it, and definitely a sustained campaign at the national level will help.
Got it.
But I think we need to look at it beyond the International Year of Millets also.
Correct. Not for this year. I'm saying
just,
as creating a brand around it.
So I think we need to do that, and we need to do that at at a national level where the noise goes to the rural areas also. The noise is there in the urban areas also, and we need to do that. But definitely, I think we need to also first have some assured supplies, and the market needs to maybe mature a little bit. I mean, that's my perspective.
Fantastic. No, I think it's a good feedback.
Yeah, but a campaign will always help.
Always help. Dr. Stanley, thanks. Through your airport security and everything, you've really waded through, and thanks for your patience as well. I don't know how much of the conversation over the last 1 hour you've been able to kind of track, but I think the key questions where we would love to get your feedback was one, overall, how IIMR is supporting the whole millet startup ecosystem, the technology, and the partnership with stakeholders. And specifically, there was a question that multiple speakers brought up on this whole thing about certification and standards, in the millet space, because every snack wants to be now healthy, every snack wants to be saying I have ragi, and stuff. So where do we kind of draw that line around certification and standards? And how is IIMR, kind of focused on that? Would love to get your comments on these two, before your boarding.
Yeah. Krishna, am I audible?
Very much, Dr. Stanley.
Okay. Thank you very much for the question, and thank you for accommodating me. Yes, exactly as you told, how certifications and standards really help in startup ecosystem or commercialization of millets in the country. We all know that millets are nutri-cereal crops, and the goodness of millet is to be passed to the consumers, right? So IIMR is specifically a research organization working on millets, especially for millet crop improvement. Millet crop improvement is such a thing. It's like development of cultivars. All these things, with all our experiences, we found when we see an increase in yield, when we think of increasing yield, breeding a variety for increasing yield, there would be like a drop in quality. That is always there. So what we thought is, especially in pearl millet, in All India Coordinated Project in pearl millet, we have fixed 2 quality parameters along with the yield parameters. Exactly when a variety is to be released, it should have an yield component, enhanced yield component. But also the goodness of millet has to be passed through. not only the yield. So what we have done is like fixed some quality parameters for
Sorry. Yeah.
So, and the cultivar surpasses the threshold level of 42 ppm of iron and 32 ppm of zinc, that variety is not being released, even though it is having a higher yield. So this is what we have seen in pearl millet. Likewise, all other millets also we have slowly came to that standards. Because one point of time when we only select a crop for yield increase, there could be, we don't know, there could be a decline in quality. Many of our rice and wheat varieties were like that. Even when we select a variety or select a crop only for yield, then the other parameters may tend to decline. So in that way, pearl millet we have made a headway. Likewise, for standards. Likewise, we have done with the finger millet for calcium. For example, 340 milligram per gram. This much level is needed. Even though the yield is there, yield gap is there, the yield increase is there. This level is also being kept as a parameter for yield for variety release. Likewise, for proso millet, it is there. So for commercialization, if you see, organic farming is a very good thing, right? Organic farming and organic certification is very much important. But here that certification is not even needed. The variety per se, if this variety is there, this much quality is also there. These are the quality parameters for this variety. So in that way, if it will come for all the minor millets also, this type of standards, that will definitely help to pass on the goodness of millet to the consumers.
Got it. Got
Hello?
it.
Am I audible?
Yeah, very much, Dr. Stanley. Thank you so much for that. I think that was very, very useful. Just a very quick, point, if you want to quickly respond on how, IIMR is also supporting the startup ecosystem in millets. Just a couple of lines on that will be useful, sir.
Okay. So IIMR, we do have, we are blessed actually with the 2-engine machine, because IIMR itself is a research organization working for last 3 decades for research and promotion of millets. That is one part. Another part is the NutriHub. IIMR hosts its startup confederation NutriHub. So it's really a blessing that both the organizations together would be very, very useful for a startup to do handhold the startup to back up in technology. And if there is anything to do in between, there is 50 plus scientists at IIMR working on different aspects, starting from plant breeding to biochemistry or biotechnology. So if anybody wants to have not only on value addition, if you want to have a something based on basic research, that is always there at our hand itself. We no need to, actually what I mean to say is, we no need to have a collaboration to another institute and go for there. Everything was is at our hand. The basic research on value on crop improvement or crop production, where it will be available, the FPO setups. We have a FPO wing also, which handholds 41 FPOs all around the country. So I feel definitely that is a very big blessing for us, that FPOs, we oversee them for production, right? So the production or the product from FPO is exactly as a raw material for a startup or a company too. So that linkage we could able to do, unless other organizations which needs something from another organization which is not needed for us. That's what I could able to see. And so linking an FPO or a farmer to a startup, because startup needs, as Pallavi was telling, the raw material, getting the raw material itself is a very important thing, right?
Yeah.
And all these millets, so small millets especially, are seasonal, and it fluctuates. All this price, it fluctuates. Once, for example, brown top millet was very high last year. Last year it was very low, and this year again it has increased. So that all depends on the demand. So exactly, there is we have made a map too in the institute, which millet will be available at what place at what time. So that exactly when it will be shared to the people who are with very much need, this place you go, you will get this millet at this time, in a definitely in a economical price. So
Brilliant.
because there it will be, the production has been there and the produce will be ready at this time. So that type of things are really a different thing, different kind of setup in IIMR and the NutriHub. Apart from that, NutriHub have so many other promotional
Programs.
things, and there its brand value itself as a eat right products and many other things in the ecosystem of millet. It is there in the large time. So that also add values to that. And of course, all those startups who have done wonderfully well, and they are our brand ambassadors. So they are also there with us. Collaboratively, we are doing much better. And this IIIM, this International Year of Millets, really have taken a major stake and given us good opportunity to go and do many things in the national level. Till that time, we were very much confined to the state where we are, or the southern states. Now we have made branches towards Punjab or Haryana and other places, and even pearl millet has been put into IIMR. Earlier, it was not there. It was separately kept in Jodhpur, and now it is there with IIMR itself. So these things definitely helped.
Thank you.
And in the meantime, it will be very much helpful, I feel.
Thank you so much, Dr. Stanley. Really appreciate that. So, I'm basically taking in that at IIMR, the ecosystem of what a startup can get from knowledge to access to raw material to so many other things are possible, and also potentially mentorship and support from people who've already done that before. I think that's really valuable, and encourage more and more startups to kind of think about it. One last question before we get to the the closing part. Ravinder, there's one question coming in saying, is there a commercial pathway which is an export pathway? Is there a potential to export millets from India? What are the thoughts around that? And Tapas, would love to get your feedback also on that after Ravinder's point.
Yeah, Krishna, though I might not be the best person to answer this question, but I mean, it is a huge demand that's there in the other countries. But I want to answer this question other way around. I think it's important for us to learn from the past. One of the reasons why I am not eating millets probably is because my father used to eat it. And so that makes it a very strong probability that my son will eat it now because I don't eat it. So there used to be this brand called Bata, which my father used to wear. I don't wear it. Now, if Bata is smart, they should position it in such a way. They should not try to convince me, because I will probably never be convinced, because my reasons are different.
Yeah.
So I mean, so I think there's a huge market that exists within this country. The children of this country is a huge single largest segment that the millet universe should be targeting. And I understand this attraction behind going for millet exports, but there are very select variety of millets which are demanded for exports. Not everything can go there. I believe we need to create our universe. We need to keep producing this, and like Pallavi mentioned, go beyond IIM, probably a decade of millets, build it, and then promote it the way we promoted yoga here, so that they know, they associate India with millets. People come here, they associate it with. And I must also want to compliment Stanley for the approach that IIMR is taking, which he mentioned about, where they are bringing in nutrition through stealth. It's more of a fluoride in a water approach. And so the startups don't need to talk about nutrition, because Stanley and his team are ensuring that our millets in India are having highest nutrition level than what is available outside. So, that in itself creates a demand for the products outside.
No, brilliant points, Ravi. I think that fantastic to hear the Bata analogy, and I think it's really, really insightful. Tapas, any quick reactions on the on the potential for export, because you said you're doing a bit of it. And then
thanks.
we will
see, I see a lot of potential. If I say, I've been connected to a lot of person from outside the country also, where they require, but thing is that the quality and the quantity should be assured, as we already listened from many speakers today. So quality is the part, and what we have exported. So as the millets is being grown by most of the small and marginal farmers, and also the variety, when variety changes, also the grain sizes changes, the color changes. So that is also a part of where the farmer faces the FPOs who have been exporting, or the person who has been there to export that. So there is also a problem in that. So for understanding that dynamics, I will say we need to also, as we say, the name of the name of the millets that we have, what we say in India, it is also different in other countries also. That is also, I have been hearing from a lot of person when I participate in different countries also, where they say, no, the nomenclature is also creating problem when it comes to export. So APIDA is also doing in that favor of helping these FPOs or the exporters who are willing to export the millets. So there is huge potential and the requirement is good. And as we are one of the country where we most of our exported in the terms of like we exported as a bird feed. So bird feed is also a potential where we have been doing with other countries for the long back, if I say 20-30 years, and also now also proso millet is also good in demand in terms of bird feed. So there is ample opportunity. We can also explore it up, and we need to also understand what is the quality that the others part of the country who's been willing to import our millet. So what is the quality requirement, the checks that they need to provide, and what are the certification that we need to do it. So we should also put it into line so that this export happens in a very good way.
Fantastic. Tapas, thank you so much. I think that's quite interesting feedback as well. We're coming to the end, of the discussion. A big round of applause for all of you. I think you kept this so engaging, so much insightful discussion, and lots of food for thought, as well, pun intended there. But I think it's very critical for us to, be focused on this ecosystem and not take our eyes off. I think this is not just the international year, maybe not just the decade, but the century of millets, hopefully, as we kind of build this out. And I think the key points clearly, Selvendran started off really setting us off on the focus of the farmer. We can't, miss that story and the economics associated with that. The focus on value chain strengthening, processing, and doing it as locally as possible. Many pathways for commercialization, and really strengthening India as an ecosystem for both consumption and production. I think if we do that, then the global will always happen. And I think we should look at building not a strong domestic market, because of which there's an export market, rather than look at, just a pure export market and not focus on the domestic. I think that's a critical one, and super insights, Pallavi, on, the snack market and some of the other things that we talked about. I think a conversation with Haldiram is definitely, up for discussion, and maybe that's the institutional pathway to kind of go to. So a big thanks to all of you for being here, and for the audiences for being patient. We at Sattva are very committed to this space. I have my colleagues Devranjan, Vikramjit, and their team from our agri practice area. We are in the final stages of discussion and getting onto a relationship with the IIMR team to publish state of the sector report on millets, which can become a regular report on keeping everybody updated on what is happening in millets across the country and what can happen, as we go forward. So we'll soon announce that partnership with IIMR, and we want to continue to run pilots and support the ecosystem through knowledge and bringing collaboration. So we are very committed to that, and I think you all have given us a lot more energy to continue on this path. So Selvendran sir, thank you so much for making time and staying here. It's brilliant to get your views and inputs. And Pallavi, Ravinder, and Tapas, and hopefully Stanley has boarded his flight as well on time. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Have a wonderful evening, everyone, and look forward to being in touch.
Thank you, Krishna. Krishna, one request. I see there are some unanswered questions in the chat box. I'll request Sattva team if they can capture that and send it to us. Happy to answer.
We will do with that, Ravinder. We'll take that initiative and come back with those inputs.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.